Today marks the 21st day since I last addressed you on the 6th of July of this year. And on that day, in order, as many Kenyans had desired, to be able to reopen our economy, I did reduce some measures that we had taken against COVID-19. But I remind each and every one of you that on that same day, as we answered your call for a reopening of an economy, I did make it abundantly clear that the government's response was also made alongside another call, a call to individual and collective responsibility in our response to this pandemic. This process of de-escalating the measures against the pandemic, needed by all citizens, required for each and every one of us to be more serious in all the health protocols that had been put forward to us by the professionals and health experts concerned. These included, amongst other things, a more serious approach to wearing of masks, sanitizing as often as we can, keeping social distancing, amongst other protocols that we are all familiar with. So, fellow Kenyans, we have had 3 weeks to assess the response. This morning, I chaired, in conjunction with my co-chair, Governor Oparanya, who is the chairman of the Council of Governors, we did chair the 5th Extraordinary Summit of the national and county governments. This is the 3rd consultation that we have had on where we stand as a country against one of the greatest health as well as economic threats that has faced humanity over the last century. Well, the results are in. The surge in infections has continued for the last 21 days. And in some areas, notably our capital city, this has accelerated sharply. Today, the virus has infected 44 out of our 47 counties. Nationally, 17,603 persons have so far tested positive for the virus. And my and our meeting's greatest concern at this moment is the aggressive surge of infections among young Kenyans who are in turn, unfortunately, affecting their elders. Contact tracing of the recent surge of infections indicates that our socializing without regard to protective behavior, particularly in an environment serving alcohol, is becoming one of the greatest risk factors in our country. As a nation, we are fortunate that the case fatality rate, which currently stands at about 1.6%, is much lower than the global average. And from our discussions this morning, we think that perhaps it is this relatively low rate that is giving Kenyans false comfort, and I repeat that, false comfort, that this pandemic is not a serious health risk to them and indeed to their families. Those are the people who have somehow interpreted the de-escalation of the measures that we took to de-escalate 21 days ago as a green light to pay no heed to the guidance by our health authorities. And their reckless actions are undoubtedly endangering those around them and endangering our whole country. I must also once again remind Kenyans of what I said 21 days ago, and that is that the government cannot police the morality of its citizens. Citizens must balance between their individual rights and their responsibility to each other. We cannot have a policeman in every street, in every village, in every home to enforce the rules. We need, as citizens, to hold each other accountable. For example, if someone enters your shop, you want the business, but if he has no mask, you must insist that they wear one. If you go to a restaurant and the waiter who serves you has not complied with the health protocols that have been set, walk away and take your business to another restaurant. Speak up. Report those who refuse to obey and even refuse their business. Do your part as a citizen, as an individual, to keep you and your loved ones safe. My friends, this is not what one would call normal times. We are living globally in abnormal times. Countries whose citizens have taken a careless or relaxed attitude have suffered greatly. Let us not think that we are immune or special. We're not. Please, fellow Kenyans, let us not follow the examples that we have seen across the world. The fact that countries do not report everything that happens in their countries. We are an open society. We tell our story. Our media is free. We do everything we can to tell the facts as they are. There are many other countries that are suffering greater than we are, but don't report, but don't say. So don't look at yourself as being special. We are not. None of us is. We are all children of God. And this disease has infiltrated all of us. Indeed, some who have the most extensive and advanced medical facilities in the world have been completely overwhelmed by this disease. You only need to follow news reports to see the truth of that. They are sick by the tens of thousands, have had to endure the suffering of loneliness as comforting visitors are kept away in order to prevent infection. In many countries, they even lack sufficient space in their mortuaries to hold bodies, and bodies are left lying on streets. We have seen reports across of graves that have been dug by the tens of thousands for very lonely, scary burials, as health authorities limit the numbers who cannot mourn at the graveside. We have even seen stories and seen pictures of people being buried unceremoniously at night. We cannot allow this to be our fate in Kenya. Today, we mourn 280 Kenyans who have lost their lives to the cruel virus. And unfortunately, fellow Kenyans, because truth must be told, there will be more. The only question is whether we shall emerge with low numbers of death, or we are going to suffer a catastrophe. The harsh reality, my friends, is that we are at war. At war with an invisible enemy who is relentless in their desire for destruction. But as in war, no mercy must be shown by either side. For in war, survival is the only key. Self-preservation is the priority for all in the theater of war. This is precisely the level of danger we find ourselves in today. And COVID-19 will only be defeated if Kenyans stand shoulder to shoulder with each other and take arms together. In war, victory is assured by united armies that pursue a singular aim of subjugating the enemy. Our victory will be to suffer minimal harm and minimal loss, and to shorten the length of this war. So therefore, dear friends, it is time for each and every one of us to get realistic. We must be realistic as parents. We must be realistic as brothers and sisters. We must be realistic as colleagues. We must be realistic as neighbors. We need to look around each other and to ask ourselves, what is my responsibility to those around me? What is my responsibility to those that I love and care about? I say this because they are the people that your actions are going to impact going forward. I do believe that none of us want to mourn parents, brothers, sisters, friends, and colleagues who would have survived were it not for our actions. Nor do I believe you would want them to mourn you. The power, therefore, is in our hands, yours and mine. We, individually and collectively, are the ones who have the power to save. I continue to say, wear your mask, wash your hands, keep your distance. And you do these things because you are a responsible and caring person, not because the government has told you to do so. You do so because you believe it is the right thing for you to do. We all have to step up to being responsible. And this, especially in the case of leaders, especially elected ones. And so therefore, all the measures that I will be announcing today shall be applied to all citizens, regardless of their social or political standing. When we de-escalated 21 days ago, I said that I would not hesitate to re-escalate again if reckless behavior is widespread. Accordingly, in response to today's resolutions from my consultations with county governors and on the advice of the National Security Council and the National Emergency Response Committee on the coronavirus pandemic, I do further order and direct as follows: that our nationwide curfew shall remain in force for a further 30 days. That there shall be no sale of alcoholic beverages or drinks in eateries and restaurants across the territory of the Republic of Kenya, effective midnight today for the next 30 days. That the closing time for restaurants and eateries has been amended from 8 p.m. to 7 p.m. starting today at midnight for the next 30 days. That all bars shall remain closed until further notice. That the Inspector General of the National Police Service shall cause withdrawal of all licenses for bars operating in breach of this directive, and those withdrawals shall be permanent. That the Inspector General shall file a weekly return of all bars whose licenses have been withdrawn to the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and Coordination of National Government. That forthwith, the Inspector General of Police shall ensure that his officers spare no muheshimiwa, no individual, irregardless of social status or rank, who is either out after curfew without being an essential worker, or who flaunts the health protocols that that have been set out. The rules are for all of us, and rank or status does not exempt anyone from them. That the National Government Administration officers and the National Police Service will strictly enforce Ministry of Health protocols on public gatherings and particularly funerals. That strict personal sanction will ensue to all police and national administration officers in whose areas of jurisdiction there is a breach of the said guidelines. That the Ministry of Health will develop a protocol to temporarily retain retired ICU staff and anesthetists to support the medical staff assigned to dealing with serious COVID-19 cases in the counties. That any government institution, including all sporting facilities, stadia, educational institutions, and other government facilities, upon designation by the Cabinet Secretary for Health as a public health facility, shall be availed to the Ministry of Health for isolation and quarantine purposes. If and when necessary, these measures will be made even more stringent. We will do this without hesitation because we hold precious the life of every Kenyan. We also understand that our economic health as a country is ultimately tied to keeping our infections and fatalities as low as possible. So for those who argue the economic argument, I tell you that there will be little tourism, scarce investment, and falling trade if our headlines start to match those of countries that have been hardest hit by the pandemic. So if we want to preserve our economic health, we must begin by preserving our physical health, and that is a responsibility for all of us. I want at this juncture to thank, through my co-chair, the chairman of the Council of Governors, all the governors of the Republic of Kenya for the efforts that they are making individually and collectively. In today's briefing, I am encouraged to note that over 70% of county governments have met the set irreducible minimum that we agreed on a few weeks ago. This is only the start. We have urged each other to do more, to reach full compliance, and to go even further. And I have promised to work with them to help keep Kenyans working and producing as much as possible during this difficult time. We reminded each other, and let me remind Kenyans, that this is not a competition. It is not a competition between the national government and county governments. It is not a competition amongst counties as to who is doing better than the other. It is not a competition between political groupings. This, brothers and sisters, is a war that we shall either drown together, or we shall hold each other up and see the glory of God as we celebrate our victory against this invisible enemy. We honor the souls of all we have lost to coronavirus, but I want to especially say that we also honor those who have lost life as a result of caring and tending for others. And this is our health workers. And I take note especially of Dr. Doreen Adisa Lugliaki, who lost her life saving lives. And we say, may perpetual light shine upon her and grant her family, and particularly her twins, who have been robbed of the gift of a mother far too early. We also extend today our gratitude to our law enforcement officers for their valiant acts. We thank God for His grace, for His mercy, and we pray for Him to save the souls of those who have lost their lives to this pandemic. Sina ingine ya kuongeza isipokuwa kusema tena, jukumu iko mikononi yetu, kila mmoja wetu, kila mwananchi. Wengi walikuwa wanatarajia ya kwamba tutasema tutafunga nchi tena. Kufunga nchi haitasaidia, kwa sababu vile nimesema, serikali haiwezi kuwa kwa mlango wa kila mwananchi. Jukumu ni letu, kila mmoja wetu, kuhakikisha amelinda maisha yake na maisha ya wale ambao ni wapendwa wake. Tusione huu ugonjwa ukiwa ni kitu rahisi. Yastahili tu tuangalie yale ambaye yanatendeka nchi zingine, hata nchi ambazo zimeendelea mara 20, mara 100 zaidi yetu. Tusijilinganishe na kusema kwingine hakuna, kwingine hakuna. Kwa nini sisi tuko wengine hawana? Nikumbushe wa Kenya, kuishi kwa demokrasia, nchi ambaye iko na demokrasia, nchi ambaye iko na uhuru wa wanahabari, sisi kama taifa hatuna nguvu ya kuficha chochote. Yale ambaye yanatendeka tunawaambia. Kuna wengine ambao labda hawana hiyo wana huo uwezo, lakini sisi kama taifa we are proud of the fact that we are a democracy and that we are able to tell each other the truth and to face up to the reality instead of sweeping the truth under the carpet and have our citizens suffer quietly. I would rather we told each other the honest truth and arm our people with the capacity to fight a known enemy rather than one we pretend, or who we pretend does not exist. Mimi najua tuko na nguvu ya kushinda. Wenzangu, hii siyo siasa. Wenzangu, hii siyo kabila ama ukabila. Wenzangu, tuwaongea juu ya maisha. Juu ya maisha. Na najua ni wengi katika taifa letu ambao wanajua moja ama mwingine ambaye amepata huu ugonjwa. Najua pia tuko na wengi ambao wanajua moja ama mwingine ambaye amepoteza maisha yake juu ya hii ugonjwa ambao huna kwa leo suluhu ama hatuwezi kutibu. Kwa hivyo wenzangu, usipojipenda we mwenyewe, penda mamako, penda ndugu yako, penda dadako, penda mtoto wako, penda jirani wako, na useme ya kwamba kwa sababu ya mapenzi yako na huyo utafanya yale ambaye yanatakikana kukinga na kulinda maisha yake, na tuweze kuendelea na shughuli zetu tukijua ya kwamba tuafanya leo mambo ambaye sio ya kawaida. Kwenda soko leo sio vile ulikuwa unaenda juzi. Kwenda kanisa leo sio vile ulikuwa unaenda juzi. Lazima upange mipango yako, maisha yako kulingana na ile hatari ambaye ipo. Kwa hivyo wenzangu, sitaki ninene zaidi ya hapo. Nasema tu pia tulikuwa na mkutano na viongozi wa Interfaith Council, na wamesema ya kwamba wangependa tuwe na siku ingine ya maombi. Maombi ya kuweka Wakenya pamoja, maombi ya kuomba usaidizi wa Mungu wakati huu mgumu. Na kwa mkutano wetu na magavana tumekubaliana ya kwamba tutatenga siku. Lakini hata tukitayarisha kuomba, hata tukiendelea kuomba, kwa sababu najua ni wengi wanaombea taifa letu, wanaombea nchi yetu wakati huu, tujue ya kwamba Mungu pia alisema anasaidia wale ambao wanajisaidia. Tusiwe tunakaa tu kusema Mungu nisaidie, na wewe mwenyewe hujafanya ile ambaye amekupatia ubongo na uwezo wa kujisaidia wewe mwenyewe. Twamuomba atuongezee nguvu, lakini najua pia Mungu asema nimekupatia huu uwezo, wewe pia ujisaidie. Ndio ukienda kuomba Mwenyezi Mungu akusaidie, unaweza kumwambia nimefanya uwezo wangu wote na pahali nimebaki nisaidie. Kwa hayo machache na mengi, kwa sababu huu mkutano wa leo ulikuwa wangu pamoja na magavana, ningependa tu nimwalike mwenzangu co-chair wa baraza la ya magavana aweze pia kunena machache. Gavana Oparanya.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, the Cabinet Secretaries who are here, and the members of the press, mimi nataka siku ya leo nimshukuru Rais kwa yale yote ambayo amenena siku ya leo. Leo vile amesema, tumekuwa na mkutano na magovernors wote, na magovernors wamependekeza mambo mengi, na kwa yale mengi ambayo wamependekeza, Rais tayari amechukua hatua, kwa sababu sisi wote tuko pamoja kwa hii kupikana na hili janga la corona. Tunataka tu wananchi wafuate yale maagizo ambayo mara kwa mara inatolewa na Wizara ya Afya. Tukifanya hivyo, tutaweza pamoja kupikana na hii ugonjwa ambayo imekumba nchi yetu na pia dunia kwa jumla. Kwa hayo machache nashukuru sana. Asanteni.
Asante sana Governor. Ile ningependa kutaja ya mwisho ni ya kwamba tumekubaliana pia ya kwamba tunataka kuondoa ile doubt ambaye iko haswa kwa watoto wetu na tarehe za kufungua mashule yetu au vyuo vyetu vya masomo mbalimbali, na tumekubaliana kwa mkutano wetu leo ya kwamba Waziri wa Elimu Profesa Magoha ataita mkutano wa washikadau wote wa elimu baada ya siku chache, na wakishamaliza mkutano wao na mashauriano yao wataitana waweze kupatia wazazi, waweze kupatia wanafunzi na watoto wetu wote vile tutaendelea na mambo ya elimu tukisonga mbele. Kwa hivyo mtarajie ya kwamba Profesa Magoha akishamaliza huo mkutano ambao tumesema hapa, atawaita na ndio waweze kutoa taarifa ama mwongozo ambao tutafuata kuhusu shule zetu mbalimbali, university zetu, na vile tutasonga mbele na mambo haya. Kwa hayo machache na mengi, nasema Mungu aendelee kuibariki taifa letu la Kenya. Mungu abariki Wakenya wote pahali popote walipo. Asanteni sana, na niwaombe tuendelee kukaa na imani, na tuendelee kukaa na usalama, na tuendelee kujikinga na hii janga la COVID-19. Asanteni sana.
क्वीन चारू मित्रा